Ryan.
Hey. There he is.
How are you?
Wait, I think it's muted.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, you got
I am
it.
muted.
There we go.
Hey.
There you go.
How's the audio level? Is it okay or?
It's
Yeah,
good.
perfect. It's good.
I like that you're going with double microphone too. This is good look. I
Yeah.
like this.
That's good. Solid microphone and yeah, whatever.
Backup.
Backup. Although these $200 headsets, the microphone sucks worse than the $20 one I bought when I started ZBrush workshops.
Never fails. Never
Yeah.
fails. Never fails.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, thanks for being here. It's really exciting. There was one story that maybe you can help clear up because you were there. A lot of people might not know. You were there at the very when did you start working at Pixelogic when ZBrush? What year did you start?
It was right in the crash. I think it was 2008 or it was 2009. But it was right after Lord of the Rings. So
yeah, so it's earlier than that because I'm 2008-ish, 2007-ish. Yeah, so you were before that. Okay.
Yeah, I lose track of
you
the
were
time.
there. You were there for the Pirates of the Caribbean, flame throwing and mouth swallowing sorting thing, right? An event that you guys put together.
That was mine, man. That's like my dream. I was gonna have my 50th birthday party, and I was trying to get that done here in Austin, Texas.
Oh yeah.
But I went to Europe instead. So.
Oh well, not a bad choice. Not a bad choice.
Tough luck.
Well, happy birthday too.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So what's the question? What's the dilemma? I got
So
lots of stories.
we were talking about ZBrush Central, and I remember talking to O'Fair about this. And I want to say, obviously, you guys started with ZBrush Academy, but then there was a user that was making ZBrush Central, and I believe O'Fair and Jaime spoke to him and said, "Hey, let's combine it." And then they ended up acquiring ZBrush Central, but I'm not sure if that was the story or not.
That must have been right before me. I was there when we decided to make Top Row. But as for who they bought the forum from, I don't actually know that.
I don't know. I could be just saying bad rumors right now, so my bad.
Good.
I don't know.
Okay, it's
I'm
okay.
making up
No,
stuff
I didn't
now.
see.
It's actually
Well,
I was gonna say it's actually indicative of how ZBrush came to be. Is so much of this is community centric.
Yeah.
And so it would totally fit because Ofer had one vision, which we'll talk about. I'll talk about in the presentation. But he had one thing he wanted to do, and he was really good at marshaling people to help him. A lot, like Standard Brush. Then there's Marcus Civis, all the stuff he did. I mean, he was coding like crazy. Decimation Masters outside.
Yeah, Matthew Yetter. Yeah.
Yeah. UV Master. What is it? Somebody was it not Furio? Oh, I'm forgetting his name. Somebody used the AccuCurve with the move brush, and it launched 1,000 ships in hard surface. It was like that one thing. Ofer and I were sitting in the Noman room watching. Starts with a V. Vitali demo his workflow.
Vitali Bolkarov.
Yeah. And Ofer and I were just sitting in the back watching it, and we just looked at each other, just like, what the fuck just happened? Like, Ofer didn't even know that could happen like that. He just had that cool feature.
Yeah. Well, we're going to kick it to you. I'll let you take it from here, and we'll be here, little minions in the background, throwing questions to you when we can.
Okay.
But we'll hand everything over to you now.
Okay, so you've got my screen here. So let me throw a couple of things up just to do some housekeeping. Where is it? Oh, it's right there, and I'm missing it. All right. So if anybody wants to learn more about what we're doing, make sure you head over to Vertex School. There's a lot of stuff there. If you want to learn anatomy, I built this like little side project, Kingslien.art, and I just open it every month as I'm kind of building it. I think in a little bit it'll be open, permanently later. But what I really want to talk about today is anatomy. But anatomy, from my perspective, not a lot of people understand why anatomy, or even really what anatomy. When you say the word anatomy, first thing that pops into most people's mind is muscles. And muscles are the last thing that you have to learn, because for me, the core of this is creative freedom, and that's what anatomy is. So the goal of what I want to present today is just how to build, how to work towards creative freedom from a sculptor perspective. And before I do that, it's really important to me to kind of talk a little bit about you know, what digital sculpting is, what it can be as well. So here, this is a little video. This is my Instagram. It's just Ryan Kingslien. And you can see, you know, this was sculpted in ZBrush. This is my son, and my son's quite a fighter. I think I recited Conan's motto for a good life. I forget what it was, a little too early, and he's incorporated that into his soccer playing. You know the one, what is best in life? To see your enemy driven before you and hear the lamentation of their mothers became basically the calling every time before you went out to soccer. So he's a fighter, right? So you can't really see it, but down below there's a little teddy bear. And then you see my son ready to go out there. And so that's a life-size marble sculpture. And then there's another one that I'm working on right now. This is giant 3D print. And so I've 3D printed this, sculpted it 7 years ago. And now this I'm using to create kind of like an armature. I also have a CNC machine, so I'll do foam enlargements a little bit later. But I wanted to try 3D printing and see if you can't, I don't know, 3D print your base. So here's this giant sculpture, 3D printed it. This is something that a traditional sculptor, they would weld, they would spend a couple of days making the foam, and that's all time that they would be investing in it. And all I did was, you know, sculpt it and set my printer up to do the work. And I had to go check, you know, and I've got the blob of death. I got like 3 dead extruder heads. I had to learn my lessons. But at the end of the day now, after I think like 4 or 5 days of printing and me doing other things, I now have my base here for me to lay clay on top of, which is similar to what I'll be doing, or what I was doing in... Is it this one? Yeah, this one. And this is where I'm going in and I'm redoing Edward Lanteri's Ecorche. So if you guys don't know Edward Lanteri, he's kind of the godfather of sculpting education. He's a contemporary of Rodin, and his book is one of the best books on how to think about sculpting, talking about convexity versus concavity, talking about rests versus just, you know, forms dovetailing into each other, you know, real good, solid education, right? And so I printed this with about 2 millimeters like inside, so I could put some monster clay in and sculpt and develop the surface of it, and choosing monster clay because it holds the details better. So digital sculpting has, to me, like, it's more than just sitting here and learning anatomy. And to me, you have to know this, but where is all of this going, right? What are you trying to do? And especially today in the world of AI and all of that, where everybody's having an identity crisis, I think it's important for us to all remember, you know, that the tools never did, I don't know if I can cuss, so I'll be nice. The tools never did anything at the end of the day. And Michelangelo's David was made without pneumatic hammers. The dude was 24, so it's not something you would do at 50. You would destroy your body. And most marble carvers, by the time they reach 50, they've got numb hands and permanent nerve damage. It's, you know, there's a reason the pneumatic hammer exists. It makes life a lot. It increases our capacity and our shelf life. Which, who knows, maybe what AI does too. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to, what are you telling? What story are you telling? Why are you creating? You know, why are you here? And, you know, I see people talk about AI all the time. No AI that. It's all BS.
So, sorry, real quick. I love what you're saying, actually. So can I ask you real quick? So basically, in theory, foundation, no matter what the tool is, should be key as an artist to focus on. Would you agree?
Well, I don't think it should be. I think it's just always, like, okay, we can say should be. I have a problem that people have this identity crisis where they're like, oh, I don't have to learn this anymore. Like, what? Huh? Like, are you that weak that this like threw you off center? Like, maybe this is the great reckoning where it's like people are amateur and this is going to shake off the amateurs, and the people who are like, they live, eat, and breathe and obsessed by this. They're just like, you know, screw it. I don't give a fuck. Like, this is my life. This is what I love to do. Y'all can piss off. And personally, I think the future belongs to the people who tell everybody else they can piss off, and does what they want. So yeah, I mean, of course, foundations are important. It's always important. It's always going to be important. Because foundations relate to the human experience. They relate to how we process color, right? The Impressionist painters versus Jean-Jacques Louis David, we're talking about neoclassical painting versus Impressionism. The reason those are important is it's not political. It's not, there are political elements to it. Jean-Jacques Louis David was a political guy. But Impressionism is a function of science almost. It's understanding optics, and it's working with the biology of the human. It's working with the biology of seeing. That's the right way to say it. Because a lot of people think our eyes are just like cameras, and they're not cameras. They're 7, 8, 10, 20. I don't know how many. They're all different sensors. There's a sensor for black and white. There's a sensor for movement. There's a sensor for color, right? And what the Impressionists did was they programmed those sensors differently. So, there's a Monet field where I think it's called poppies. Let me see if I can find it, because otherwise I'm just like talking. And in that field, what Monet does, and I don't know if this is going to be the right image, like I'd have to take this into Photoshop to see if it's color corrected, but you see the red. But if you were to make this black and white, you don't see the red and the green anymore. So what happens is the Impressionists have hacked into the biology of seeing, and they make the value structure where it's all one. And then there's only one sensor in your eye that's picking up color. And so it creates this like shimmer. And the people who went and saw the Impressionists, because they were the early movies. They weren't the early movies. They were movies back in that day. You went to go see your movie, and it was the Monet movie. They were like, oh, it's shimmering. It's floating. Now our eye is much more sophisticated, so it doesn't work that way. But it's just all to the human scale. And so you have to, I'm going to circle. You have to learn your foundations, because your foundations are understanding the human scale of it all. Otherwise, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know where you would go. People talk about AI art. AI is going to make art, and let AI make art. I mean, why stop it? But if I am going to look at art, I'm going to look at art that I enjoy from a human scale and a human perspective. And so, this essential kind of, let me get myself on this topic. So AI, craft, all of that, but primarily, let's circle back. It all comes to story, and it comes to what you're telling and what you want to tell. And so I'll tell you one thing, and then we have to get, actually, why don't we sculpt while we sit here and do this? Because I want to show you guys, at the end of the day, y'all can see my screen?
Yep, we can see
Yep.
it.
Looking
Okay,
good.
so
Yep,
let's
you're
not
good.
get too esoteric. Or if we're going to do esoteric, let's sculpt. So there's a story about James Cameron back in the early days of Avatar, where back in that day, ILM was getting the job, and it was my job to help train artists on ZBrush back then. And so James Cameron had he had 2 ZBrushers, Andrew Cars and Neville Page, were living out of his Malibu home. And James Cameron would come down from that Malibu home, jump into the studio, and he would go, okay, guys, here's an image. We need something like this. Like one time there was these like little corals, flowers, not flowers. There was these entities that lived underneath the, like really close to the deep volcanic vents. And Cameron, gave that image and sent that over, and then told the team, like, I want something that looks like this. And then he left. And I thought, when people started talking about AI and all of these things, I started thinking like, shit, like we're all James Cameron now. Because that dude, all he did was go downstairs to a bunch of dudes and say what he wanted. And next thing you know, he came in the next day and he had, you know, some cool looking art to look at. And so what do you want to say? Is James Cameron going to be freaked out by AI or any of that stuff? No, because he's going to use AI. If it helps him say something, if it helps him get what he wants to get out into the world, out into the world. And that's what I want everybody here to be thinking about, you know, because I'm going to teach you anatomy. And if you're like me, you know, it's like I get obsessive about stuff. And so where does anatomy take you? Well, if you got nothing to say, it don't take you anywhere. You end up just sitting here going like, I got to learn more anatomy. I got to learn more anatomy. I got to learn more anatomy. And so at Vertex, we have this saying where it's like, everything is story. If you're going to make a prop, what's the prop going to tell? What story is it going to tell? Yeah, let's do that. Because that's your job when you make a prop. You know, you're a lowly prop artist at a video game, you know, studio, and you have to make a pallet, right? Or not a pallet, let's say a crate. Well, where was that crate? Was it in the desert? Was it in a jungle, right? What kind of conditions? Has it been abandoned? Is there, you know, a war going on and they're constantly taking stuff in and out of it? There's a story that everything has to tell. And your job as an artist is to tell that story. And ultimately, if you want to survive in this industry, to have stories that you want to tell as well. Everything comes down to story, because story is what humans want. It's what it's $billion+ industry. The entire movie industry is based on story. The entire game industry built on story. Last of Us, holy crap. Like that movie destroyed me. I never played the game. The story's in the game. They just made a game. That was their medium. Like Leonardo da Vinci worked in oil painting. What was the medium before oil painting? Egg tempera, right? So it's all just mediums. And your job, your goal, what you want is to be able to say something. Or if you don't have anything to say, then start to figure out what it is that you want to say. Start to figure out your story, what you find important, you know?
Brian, real quick,
Yes,
what
sir.
brush are you using? Is this a brush that you made, you downloaded?
This is mine. It's the Kingslien clay brush. I had to put my name on it because, you know, Damien put his name on his. So, so I had to.
Do you
I
have
don't
it in a
to.
pack? Do you have a pack, or do you work?
Yeah. Just go here. Free class. You'll get it. It's in there along with 4.5 hours of training where, you know, you guys kind of learn how I take you through the foundation of sculpting. It's a little advanced actually. So I'm going to redo this to make it more basic, but you can get the brushes there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to know about brushes, a lot of times like this brush, I'm going to just hover over it and press Control. Oh, does that not work? That's weird. No. What happened to the brush type?
It's the brush
Got rid of
types are when
You
you're just near not the control
Just
key is
hover
only
over
going to
it.
give information.
Yeah.
You just hover
Oh,
over
there
it
we
and
go.
give it the brush.
Cool.
You just hover over it.
Just
You don't
lost
need
my mind.
control.
All right, so base type clay, right? And so we know that this is a clay brush, and obviously I've got to update the URL there. Haven't had that site in a long time. And this brush, let's go into the clay brush real quick. Like there's just a few modifications to it. But what I would recommend you guys do is download the brush and then just quickly compare it with the clay buildup, and just go from like samples is usually important. Where's the clay? In this case, I changed nothing. Modifiers, I changed that 10. Did I change anything in depth? I got rid of, oh wait, that's the wrong one. So modifiers, clay buildup. Yeah, it doesn't look like it changed anything. What I probably changed was over here in the lazy mouse. I set my lazy step to 0.05, whereas clay buildup is probably going to have, 0.1. And so, just those little changes make a difference. I probably changed my Z intensity as well. Now look at that.
You changed the alpha too. You had a
Yeah,
round
the alpha.
now.
Yeah, I'm going to go now back to this alpha, because I was the clay tubes brush was one of the ones I got to put in ZBrush, which is really nice.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, history, people. 25 years. Here we go.
History. Except for actually, Ofer told me to put it in there. So
no, you did it. Come on.
I built it, but he told me what to do.
You also did the demo head and the demo soldier, right? That was those were
I
yours.
did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
So, and yes. All right. So I want to talk now. We're going to talk a little bit about anatomy and get in some of the meat and potatoes of this presentation. So when we talk about anatomy, a lot of times, the whole focus is on this idea of muscles. Face is a great example of how unimportant muscles actually can be, because they're not form producers. The entire shape, this is all the forehead. That's all bone. Right here, that's zygomatic. It's the frontal bone here, zygomatic bone here, the chin, the jaw. Like, so much of the human face is skeletal. And so what we have to look for in the study of anatomy is not the muscles. It's what a master artist does in the first 10 seconds of laying out a drawing. That's where they start to telegraph their what we call form concepts. And form concepts is a word I got from a guy named Anthony Visco out of Pennsylvania. And form concepts really, to me, are one of the core elements that you have to learn. So here in the face, there's this great form concept from George Bridgman where he talks about the 4, 5, 6 masses of the head. And so I've actually built those masses in my head. I've now actually moved on to the anatomy. And so I'll go back and I'll show you guys. But there's the forehead, there's the cheekbone region. And what is really important is to notice his language. So it's giving me trouble. There we go. The language is forehead square and passing into the cranium, cheekbone region flat, erect cylindrical form, triangular form of the lower jaw. So when he describes the anatomy, he's also describing the form. And I like to think of these as form concepts. Just like a concept of furniture, you can have chairs, you can have tables, everything is underneath there. Form concepts are ways of arranging volume to help us, put together faces and arms and, all of that different stuff, because nature reuses things. The arm is the leg. The hands are the feet, right? They're the same bones, just slight modifications. So George Bridgman has this idea of the 5 or 6 volumes, and what you kind of saw me do earlier. Why is this finicky? Do I have touch on? Okay. I seem to be a little more in control now. All right. So let's go back in time and go right to here. So right here, what we have is the block of the forehead. And that is then going into the sphere of the cranial unit. We have a flat rectangle for the cheekbones. We have an upright cylindrical mass. Let's go ahead and put that in and give it a little bit, right? And then we have this triangular shape. I think, he's doing his best with that. This one doesn't lead as much. But those volumes are there. And those volumes are, I have to make them every single time. let's go ahead so I don't lose anything. Let's say if we have a scan, let's work with a scan. Let's do Velasquez, male Velasquez. Okay. So in the anatomy class, we do exactly what I'm going to do right now. We do this all the time. We use this incredible split feature where, let's go ahead and close that, where we can see our reference on one side and sculpt on the other. And this is basically like sculpting from life. And so in order to understand this human body, the first thing that we have to do is not the, in my view, it's not the anatomy. In the olden days, they would talk about the masses. They would talk about the three main masses. You got to understand the ribs, the pelvis, and the head, right? You got to, and so I still believe that those are kind of the essentials. You got to understand those masses to really make the most out of it. But those are form concepts. And so that idea, it's not really just masses, is you just have to understand the form concepts of the body. So if we look here at the arm, right? The arm has usually kind of an oval, and then you'll have like a little rectangle. And then you can do the exact same thing for the lower arm and a little rectangle. You can do the same thing for the thigh. Oh, that's off a little bit. You can do the same thing for the lower leg.
The chicken legs, right? Or the concept of the manicization.
Sure. Yeah. The chicken leg bean. You know, and so just a simple form concept that helps you. And so, you know, it's also this idea here also goes to the hand. So the thumb, you know, is basically a wedge, and then you have this, right? And it continues. Nature reuses its recipe for everything. And so when we are going through and we're sculpting, the key thing is do you understand the form concepts? Because I get questions all the time. Like, Ryan, I was just answering this in somebody on Instagram. I have a plateau. I don't know what to do. And so plateaus aren't a mystery. They shouldn't be a mystery. They're a mystery because of the one universal truth, which is that you can't solve a problem with the same level of intelligence that created the problem. So a plateau is simply a quote unquote intelligence problem. It just means like you haven't leveled up. And so you're just doing the same thing over and over again, right? It's like that saying, in order to have something that you don't have, you got to be willing to do something you haven't done. So here, when we talk about this, the real question about learning anatomy is like, you know, how do I level up my intelligence, which is going to fuel my creative freedom? And so anatomy intelligence, AI, for short, revolves around vocabulary and form concepts. If you don't understand the underlying form concepts and you go and you learn like the bicep. So if I'm going to be looking right here and I'm like, hey, I'm going to do the bicep, it's going to lead you astray. Like, because look at what just happened. Did the bicep, is it going this way? Is the bicep going that way? Like, is that the bicep and it's doing that thing? Okay, no, I've learned anatomy. So now, you know, it's going to be this and it's, but wait, is that the coracobrachialis? Like, what the hell is that damn thing? And then you end up realizing like, shit, that's just fat. Like all of this trouble, just fat, or it's the scan is crap. Something happened with the scan. I don't know what the hell it is. But what I do know is that I don't want to be worrying about what that is in the middle of trying to sculpt. I want to have a system that allows me to create from anything. And how much time do I have, guys?
You got, hold on, let me look at the time here. It's 11:20 our time right now, and you go to 11:50. So
30 minutes. Okay.
30 minutes. So real quick though, before
Yes,
where
sir.
are you getting the scans? Are you doing the scans yourself with just your own devices, or is that, how are you getting the scan data? for you?
Oh, I have a friend that gave me the skins, a very
Okay.
dear friend. And so those were all part of something way back in the day. And so he contributed those.
Nice.
Yeah. It helps to know people in LA. All right. So I don't know how much, I don't know if I want to do a face, a body, you know, they're all the same thing. And all the problems that you can encounter in a face, you can encounter in the body. But, you know, without too much, oh, he looks really pissed. Not pissed, actually. It looks like he's got a medical condition. Let's drop that down low. There you go. It should read from a distance, right? If it doesn't read from a distance, that means that something's wrong with your underlining form. And it's really important to note. Muzzle of the mouth. That muzzle of the mouth, if you don't have that, like nothing else matters, right? Like you see videos on YouTube all the time and people will grab like, I don't know, a cylinder, not a cylinder. They'll grab like let's just do a simple plane. Do I have to make that a polymesh? I always forget. And you just do lips. So you're like, there's some lips. And I sculpt messy, so this is like freak people out. But I'll like, okay, go there. I'm gonna sculpt that. Let's dig that in, and then let's put a lower lip in there.
I love the messy sculpting. That's how I do it. I just start slapping clay on there. Let's see what happens.
Yep. Same here.
Yeah, I still remember the day Ofer gave me the clay brush. So I was like right there, able to test that right away. And I was just like, dude, this is a failed flatten brush. Like, why'd you do this? And I actually said that to him, you know, because we were really, he'd call me at midnight. So it's like we were close. But what a dumb ass thing to say. Just stupid as hell. Like, obviously that dude knew what was going on long before any of us. All right. So what's wrong with these lips? Like 20,000 different things. You have to learn to set yourself up for success. So we start with the round, right? And then we go in and I'll start with the damn standard brush. And I'll put a line in like this, right? And so what this line does is it sets up planes. It sets up, okay, that's the top part, there's the down, there's another up, and then there's another down. That's the primary purpose of that line, because I'm not sculpting lips, I'm sculpting planes. And then once I've got that, then I'll come down and I'll do my next mark, which is I go and I create these kind of marionette lines. This is generally better done with the standard brush because I can get a little bit more out of it. I can kind of push those things in a little bit. And so, I mean, you don't have to go far. Like I've been doing lips like this since a long time ago. I have to go back on my YouTube and see when the first YouTube video was. And then I'll establish some of that, some of this. And then now next thing you know, you got lips. They're not finished. There's a lot of problems. But the basic premise behind everything I'm presenting today is that you have to have a process. And it's the process that gives you power. What we say at Vertex is mastery is not magic, it's process, right? So, and we now know magic is process. You do X, Y, and Z, and it distracts them so that you can pull off, you know, XZ, whatever it is. It's a series of steps that you methodically go through that fool people. And that's what mastery is just steps. And they become part of your body, part of your neurology, like, and you just do those steps and you don't even realize that you're doing them anymore. And that's why I say, you know, you have to understand what a master artist does in the first few seconds, right? And so now I've made a mistake. I don't know if anybody can spot the mistake I made, but there's a mistake in my process. So the corner of the corner of the lips are not right. And so now I would have to go back and I have to brute force it. But I believe in a thing called deep practice, which you can learn more about from Daniel Coyle. And so in deep practice, the basic idea is that you want everything to flow from beginning to end with as few mistakes as possible, if zero mistakes. Like try to have zero mistakes so that it just emerges. He uses the example of a violin player. I want this mouth to emerge with as few steps as possible, not going back, right? And so the step I missed was that. That's it, right? And just that one little step, like, look what that did. I'm going to keep it zoomed out a little bit. Do you see the highlight? Do you see the shadow? The human eye picks that up, and that's in everybody. We all have that right there, unless we have a beard covering it.
Do that one again. Do that one again so they can see it. Yeah.
What? The drawing? Or
go back. Yeah. No. Do the sculpt part again. Go back. Undo before you had it.
I was like, you want me to put my fingers in my mouth again?
Yeah, let's go.
What summit are we? What summit are we at here?
What summit are we at? There you go.
Okay.
You guys got to figure. Ryan and I have known each other for a very long time.
Yeah. Sorry, guys, if that was inappropriate.
That's inside jokes.
Oh, you're good. You're good. You're keeping it.
All right. So there you go. So now you got me sweating. So let's go back right here. It's as simple as... You're using the standard brush?
You're using the standard brush?
Yep, simple standard brush. And it's like 3 or 4 concentric turns. Okay. And those set me up. Now, I'm not entirely done yet. There's a couple of other lines I need to do. So I'm going to draw a line around here underneath. So that's a line going here. I'm going to draw a line going that way. I'm going to draw a line coming this way. And then I'll probably draw another line that way. Okay. And so these lines are things that I've known about that just help me organize things. So there's names for them, like that's the juggle groove. Is it the juggle groove? Yeah, I think that's called the juggle groove. And so we put these in and it starts to, you can see it from here. It's like it starts to set us up. It's like, all right, that's the nodule at the side of the mouth. This is cheek fat that's moving back into the masseter. Right. And then there's more. So you can go a little bit deeper and we can say pull a line out this way. And so now what that line does is that line starts to separate out the orbicularis oris, the mouth muscle, from the masseter, and then also from the depressor anguli. And then really this just becomes exposed chin. And then this becomes fat. And, you know, if you've seen as we all get older, the jowl is here because that's that fat there traveling south. So now if I start to orchestrate that, let's divide this.
So when you're doing this process, you tend to stay in Dynamesh in the very beginning and then start dividing. Do you ever use Sculptors Pro, or you just stick in Dynamesh?
I never use Sculptors Pro because I can't handle sculptable topology is really important to me. And Sculptors Pro, like, you know, just makes changes I'm not prepared for. And you know, you know how long I've been doing this. So it's that was pre my workflow. So Geo, you know, Geo Napkel, was like, Ryan, try a modeler, Adobe's thing. And I wanted to try it so bad because Geo is just like, he's just an amazing artist and he was doing cool things. But man, I'm like, dude, I'm 50. Like, I don't really want to spend my time learning new software. Like, go volunteer for my kid's band. That's really what I want to do. Okay, you see it all revolving, all coming together?
Yep.
And so, you know, at the end of the day, it might look messy. Some elements of that might look messy, but it is far from messy. It's structure. This is underlining structure. So here, let me see if I can do a comparison. Yeah. So I'm going to draw the lines again. So I drew a line to separate this. I drew a line here. Okay. I drew a line out like that. Okay. I drew a line in here to separate the masseter from the rest of that. Okay. I also drew a line in here to kind of, this is just a little trick to give a little highlight to the form right there. And then, you know, the next thing you know, you're just kind of going in and you're mapping out kind of like a 3D printer. It really should be like you are your own 3D printer where you have these, you have these things you have mapped out and they're what you do. And then, you know, I'll come in and there'll be a whole series of things that I do here in the eye. I'm going to get the malar line. Actually, the malar line is right there. I'm going to get the infraorbital margin right there. You know, we've got a bunch of things that we got to kind of sort through. But I think what I want to do is I want to transition into sculpting a torso to show you guys some more advanced thinking on it.
So before we
yeah.
do that, can I ask you a question real quick? If
Sure.
you're doing a likeness from life, let's say you're sculpting a portrait of someone, does that change your process in any way? Do you do any sort of like matchmaking, try to match the structural bone parts of your portrait to the model, or is that just still very much like a Bridgman approach where you're just blocking out the forms and then kind of guessing when you get to that part of the features and that kind of stuff? Like, how does that change your process?
Likeness, I first have to say I hate likenesses. Because they're down to a nuance. Right. And if you get a photo reference of somebody on a bad day or even on a different day, but it's in the morning, the afternoon, small things shift, camera shifts. And so likeness, the number one thing you have to understand is like this part of what I'm doing right here is, I doubt it's 10% of the effort. And so that's the number one thing people have to understand. Like, because I love to sculpt. I do not love to worry about the half tones and get into look dev. Is not my place of joy. But if I am worried about a likeness, which I was just doing,
let's say you're working from a live model, not from photographs. Like you're actually looking at the person. And you're like, okay, I want to make the likeness of this person. How would that change your process? Do you still hate it?
No, you know, there's a lot of different things. So like here, we can look a little bit at this. So I was working on a likeness of, I'm working on a bust of Vincent Desiderio, who is a painter out in New York. Very important for people like myself, who when I started realism, like people, it didn't exist. Basically, I had to move my entire life to the East Coast to learn how to draw realistically. Now you go to YouTube, but YouTube wasn't a thing back then. And so, you know, Vincent, I'm a big fan of this guy. What that just happened? And so I want to do like a crazy portrait of Vincent. And all I have, this is not somebody from life, but this is, you know, all I have is, let's do pure ref. So you can see, I do not have a lot to work with. Open recent. Like, look at how grainy that is.
Oh, wow.
And there's Vincent, there's a couple of different things, and we got stuff. But now what is important, you know, in this conversation for us, and in terms of the likeness, and really, I think kind of the core of your question is do you still worry about the volumes? Do you still sculpt those volumes? And the answer is yes, 1000%. Now, somebody else might not, but I do. And so it's because inside of this image, like you can see, there's his cheek. So here's going to be his rectangular plane of the cheek. You know, there's the upright cylindrical mass right in there. You know, I try to find the square part of his forehead and how that's going to fit into the cranial area, triangular shape of the jaw. And so, yeah, I'm always thinking about that, right? And so now with this one, say, for example, let's rotate it.
Because I wasn't really, what I was asking was more like,
Yes.
okay, do you still sculpt basic volumes and then match the reference, or are you thinking of that as you're looking at the reference from the start, from the get-go?
Well, that's a question of automation almost. So ultimately, I still whether I'm doing it in ZBrush or I'm doing it in my mind, I'm still sculpting the basic forms. But I just sculpt them in my mind most of the time. But they're always there. And for anybody who hasn't sculpted the basic forms, I'm like, you don't pass go, sculpt the basic forms. And you got to look at this, and you can't get carried away with some of the stuff going on there, right? Like I'm missing those things, but I got to go in and I got to look, all right, where's the angular? And then how's this work? And how's this move in? And you notice like I'm off a little bit, but that cheek is looking like I'm pretty close to having that. And this massing is okay, so you still have to think in terms of overall volumes, and you still have to have a process, and so we can look at the torso is really going to be the best one when we start to talk about working from life, because now the question would be, you have your model, let's take this back. How are we going to go through and do this? So geometry, let's go Dynamesh. I'm going to get myself in trouble.
Give you a quick time check too, Ryan. You got 13 minutes left.
Oops.
Just so you know.
Ugh. All right. We'll work with that. Let's work on this back. So I'm going to, right off the bat, and I'm going to skip the bony landmarks. No, you can't skip your bony landmarks, Ryan. It's like not eating your meat straight to your pudding. Okay, so okay, let's check it. I use the sides of the canvas. So you see how I'm lining up that line, and I'm just checking it with this line down here. So sculptors will use calipers, and this is my caliper. The boundaries. Okay. Now, when I'm working on this, do I immediately start on the muscles and say start on the teres major back here? Absolutely. I do that every time I want to have a shitty day. It's the first thing I do is focus on the muscles, because it's guaranteed to make me feel like I totally chose the wrong career and I have screwed up 20 years of my life. Just do that. So then I end up having to come back and be like, all right, pull your head out of your rear end. And I'm going to now start getting a little jittery. And focus on the task at hand, which is capturing the rib cage. Now the rib cage, I have very specific things I do. I capture the back plane, and then I capture a line across here. And since I'm short on time, you're going to have to see the anatomy class to see why. Or maybe I'll jump into another Pixelogic thing. So we'll see.
Yeah, real quick, Ryan, while you're doing this too, because I think this is a relevant question to where you're going with this. But one of the viewers is asking, in your opinion, how do you not lose the character of the model in the process of detailing? Because sometimes in the beginning, they seem to catch their character, but then they lose it. And so is that kind of what you're alluding to with like starting with muscle immediately? You're just going to have a bad day?
Well, I think so, yeah. And really, that speaks to the foundation is just not solid. So you got to work on your foundation. And by foundation, I mean like these subtle forms that I have here. If you're talking about like, say, something like that Vincent Desiderio and working on that, like Or I did a Matthew McConaughey, and it's looked like 20 different versions of that dude, and that dude's looked like 20 different versions of himself anyways. So, you know, it's nuts. But ultimately, you have to devote time. That's one of the key components out of this, is make sure that you're aware that all of this is a function of time. You have to give yourself time. And by time, I mean, you got to give yourself like days, if not weeks, you know, because in the beginning, it's just, this is a human art form. It requires, you know, the human brain, and the way humans work is, number one, slowly. This is why AI has so many advantages that people are like, you know, excited about. It can see patterns that humans will take, you know, decades, centuries to learn. And they might learn them, and then the next thing you know, you got a war and it's all gone. You know, like what happened with the burning of the Library of Alexandria. You know, the amount of knowledge they had back then before that, I mean, we would definitely have flying cars if they hadn't burned that damn library.
Yeah, actually, on that point, I actually joke a lot with my friends, saying like, I wish I could go back in time, not to change anything, but to be a fly in the wall on the turn of the Dark Ages. Like, what happened where the Dark Ages came in, and just so much knowledge was lost, and who knows where we would be. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So this is going to be a mild one. So again, I'll have to pop on to something again later, guys, to really dial this in. But in my study, because this is when we're in the arena, is when we're studying. And so the idea is we study like we are right now, and we're learning process, and we're failing, and we're learning process, and we're failing, and we're learning process. And then next thing you know, we can go and we can imagine all sorts of things, and we get that creative freedom that, you know, we all so desperately want. But, you know, it takes us going in and really trying to dive into the thinking process. Like this whole mess right here, right? Right now, I am setting myself up to have a really crap day. Because what am I doing? I'm following the long head of the tricep. I'm trying to be like, where's that long head of the tricep? And then what happens? The long head of the tricep veers off over here. And so I play whack-a-mole, which sucks. And so instead, what we have to learn how to do is we have to learn how to think about it analytically. And so what do I not have right now? The number one thing I do not have is I do not know where my acromion process is. And you guys are like, I don't know where my acromion process is. I will tell you where your acromion process is. It's this little thing right here. Right? And then at the end of that, that's the clavicle. So the acromion process is actually even farther away. So now, see, I don't have that measurement. And if you don't have that measurement, like, how could you do anything? You can't. So your sculpt is going to suffer. You're going to be in pain. You're going to be in mental pain and anguish. And all it is you didn't do your anatomy study properly. And you started to focus on the candy. Now, once I know acromion process is right there, I actually can take and do a 2D line check. I say, all right, well, look, it's going right there. Okay. Now I go in and I have a little bit more control over how we, wrong brush. Time check.
Time check.
Yeah, we got
And
about
check 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Okay. So I'm going to totally bypass anatomy and go straight to form. And so when we go to form, it's like now that is actually a block. That's all that is. And if I can see the block, if I am the block, then
One with the block.
yes, then I can start to have some of that power. Oops. I just learned how to turn that auto select off. It's like, how long have I been in this program? I just learned how to turn it off.
That just proves we're always learning.
Always learn. Now we can start to flow some things. And then when we get into the arms, it's like, well, am I going to do bicep? No. Again, you start thinking about muscles. I'm going to do simple planes. And you can see this in my Instagram. You can see, all right, I do these arms, and I'm just going in, and my primary first step is to just get that box. And then once I've got that box, then I start to worry about like, okay, maybe we can start talking about the shield of the deltoid, right? And so I want to use shape language as I go in. So I like to think of the deltoid as a shield. I'm trying like the devil not to think about the tricep too much, because it is just the siren's call, just leading me astray. But I may be close to the point where I can do it. All right. So we can start wrapping up. The key thing for me, when you guys are learning art, really focus and spend your time. Like, because, you know, some people are really new to 3D. ZBrush really attracts a lot of new people all the time, and which is probably why Maxon bought them. Good thing. So when you get worried about this, you know, for back in the day, ZBrush was the dream for creative freedom. That's what he built it for, was creative freedom. He didn't build it for ease of use, as everybody who uses ZBrush knows. You know, he was like, I don't want it to be a Toyota. I want ZBrush to be a Ferrari. You have to learn how to use a Ferrari. You can't just like put it in drive and drop the transmission. You need to learn how to work with it. And it's a very human thing, right? Like I was trying to talk Ofer into building a character creator, and he was like, no, this has to be something where effort is rewarded, where you have to feel like you did something, like you would with your own hands, even though I'm just drawing on a screen, you know. You got to tell a story and just start focusing on your craft, guys. And if you want to learn more anatomy, head over to kingslien.art. And also, don't forget, I am going to be in Rome, teaching digital sculpting with David Simon and the crew. So Rome workshops, that's the last plug I'll give. If you go over there, you can go into workshops. I'm in the first workshop. We have to flesh this out, but basically for 2 weeks, we're going to do museum visits. What's that?
Nice.
That's a nice date for me.
Yeah. So Rome, come work with me. RomeWorkshop.com, theRomeWorkshops.com. Shouldn't use an S, but I did too. And so there you go. Now, lots of stuff just happened. Some of it will make sense, some of it won't. Hopefully something was
Getting a lot of people asking for more time with you sculpting. That's means a
as you guys
successful demonstration over here.
Good. I love sculpting. It's my passion. And you know, sculpting is a way of thinking and it's a way of seeing. I think of it as a foundation skill. Everybody goes to drawing and painting, but every amazing drawing and painting person knows sculpture is a primary art form. You have to learn that too.
Yep.
Well, like everyone said, I wish we did have more time, but we've definitely got a bunch of more presentations today. As always, Ryan, dropping the knowledge bombs in anatomy for everybody too. Seeing you work through it too, I think is why people are like, this is what we want to do. We just want to see, and this is part of what ZBrush Summit's all about, is connecting with the community and letting people see what you have going on and going to Rome. I'm in.
It's part of ZBrush. Like I didn't have a presentation slide. I just opened ZBrush.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. So yeah, this was awesome. Thanks for being here, Ryan. It's
Thanks,
always
guys.
such a pleasure. And yeah, we dropped the links in the chat too. So if you guys are interested in any of his courses or that the Rome workshop, because I guess Rodolfo's now going to book his ticket. So get in there. And, yeah,
I want to book my ticket. I want to go to Rome.
Book away. Let's just all go. Yeah,
Let's go to Rome. Let's just do a trip.
Say no more. Let's go to Rome.
David gets us access to museums too, special access.
Oh yeah. Now you're
talking.
Yeah. We're hooked now.
Yeah. Museum geek right here.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Well, Ryan, thank you for being with us, taking time to get out of your weekend away from your family too. Appreciate it. All the best to you and your fam too. Say hi for me.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here and showing a nice little knowledge bomb of anatomy and what people should be looking for and how they should start out their processing of sculpting a human character.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah. Thank you.
See you later. Cheers.
Bye.